Going to need to give yourself a few extra minutes this morning if you are driving on Albuquerque's west side.
And it is going to be that way for at least the next 6 months. Unser between I-40 and Ouray will be a mess. Crews are widening the road. News 13's David Romero is live near Unser and Ladera with more on the project. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Elizabeth. Well, this should come as no surprise to drivers in the area because the signs have been up for about the past week or so, warning them that this was coming. Now, of course, work got underway yesterday morning when most had the day off, and as many returned to work today from the holiday, it may be a little bit surprising. Now, the main purpose of the project is to widen an already busy part of Unser that Westsiders depend on for the morning and afternoon commute. This will eventually expand the portion of the road to 3 lanes in each direction, with lanes for both pedestrians and bicycles on both sides. But until it's complete, the city says the north and southbound lanes will be squeezed from 2 to 1 in each direction from north of I-40 to Ouray. The total cost for the project is $3 million.
We didn't need to match any federal funds with this project, and it's a good project because it adds capacity. That should reduce times as people drive through there.
And Motzko also says that once this portion is complete, it's all part of the bigger scheme of things to eventually have Unser Boulevard from Dennis Chavez in the South Valley all the way to the Rio Rancho city line, which is between Sandoval County and Bernalillo County, to eventually have Unser Boulevard no less than 2 lanes at any point in the road. Back to you.
Okay, David, thank you. Crews plan to do the majority of the work opposite of rush hour, so northbound lanes will be worked on in the morning. Then they will switch to the southbound lanes when the afternoon rush hour hits.
We are now less than 2 weeks away from the federal government cutting billions of dollars from the budget. That could have a huge effect here in New Mexico. U.S. Senator Tom Udall was in Santa Fe talking about this yesterday. He says Congress is going to try to prevent these cuts, but he's not sure it can agree on a plan in time. The budget cuts could be as deep as more than $1 trillion in the next 10 years and could affect everything from education to defense jobs. Now, Governor Martinez says she's trying to get the state to rely more on private jobs and less on federal ones, so the cuts will not hurt as much here. And speaking of the governor, a bill she supports that would hold back 4th graders who cannot read well is on hold right now. Legislators say schools would need more money to help these kids, and right now the bill doesn't have a way to come up with the cash. The state Senate is working on a similar plan. We'll let you know what happens with it.
A bill set to be heard in the Senate Finance Committee would create a special fund to help horse shelters. The Horse Shelter Rescue Fund bill was introduced at the end of last month. If passed, the bill would let people give voluntary donations by checking a box on their state income tax form. The donations would then go to the state's licensed nonprofit horse shelters. Horse shelters have been especially busy in the past few years after several cases of abuse have popped up. This is one of the 24 animal welfare bills being considered by state lawmakers this session.
And another bill, this one to prevent cities and towns from banning pit bulls, is on its way to the state Senate, but it has one major change. It now says the state's biggest cities, including Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, would be exempt. So now the bill prevents most cities and counties from creating rules to say people cannot have certain breeds of dogs. This includes pit bulls.
It really gives a false sense of security to folks because they think that, there's no certain breeds in the community or no mean dogs in the community.
I don't think that we as the legislature should tell the local communities whether or not they can enact this kind of an ordinance.
T. Harris has been banning pit bulls since the 80s, and Elephant Butte has rules saying you have to have insurance and register certain breeds there. That includes pit bulls, Rottweilers, and German Shepherds. New Mexico is not sending nearly enough of its violent criminals to prison. That's what a former state representative, who's also a former FBI agent, says about our staggering crime statistics here. New Mexico has more violent crimes per capita than any other state in the southwestern part of the U.S. and has far fewer inmates. Dennis Kintai says that comes down to prosecutors cutting plea deals and judges going easy on criminals, giving them probation or suspending their sentences.
I think they just fail to understand that people who are violent and harmful need to be incarcerated. They have forfeited the right to be out among the public.
And we asked judges and district attorneys about New Mexico not sending as many criminals to prison as these other states, and none of them wanted to talk about it.
Governor Susana Martinez will be talking about an issue that is very dear to her heart in just a few hours. It's Alzheimer's Day at the legislature. The governor's father passed away on New Year's Eve after battling Alzheimer's. She and legislators will talk about a bill to make silver alerts go across the state to make it easier to find people who have the disease and who wander away from home. You may notice protesters outside of a restaurant in Albuquerque, a restaurant that actually admits it is not paying workers the new minimum wage. The owner of Route 66 Malt Shop in Nob Hill confirms hourly workers are still making $7.50 an hour, not $8.50, and tipped workers are still getting $2.13, not $3.83. He says the higher pay would drive him out of business, and he claims his workers are okay with that.
We had a verbal agreement before the newest minimum wage law went into effect that they would work at whatever wage we hired them at.
The group called Progress New Mexico is having a protest today and says it is also upset with the city for not enforcing the new rule.